Next guest is going to catch us up on all things media. Let's welcome Don Graham. He is Graham Holdings chairman. He's also the former chairman and publisher of the Washington Post and a former Facebook board member. And Don, thanks so much for being here today.
Becky, I'm thrilled. This is a tradition. When did you start coming to Omaha? When did you start interviewing Warren the Monday after this meeting?
You know, my first time for the annual meeting, we were just talking about it. My first time was 14 years ago. Then I took a couple years off, and then I started coming back. And I think we started interviewing him the Monday after, back in 2008.
And after the report came out about the same time.
Yeah, about the same time.
So I'll tell you a story you may not know. In 1973, I got a call from my mother, Catherine Graham, who was the CEO of the company and publisher of the Post. She said, "Come up to my office. I want to show you something." She showed me a letter which began, "Dear Mrs. Graham, I've just bought 13.7% of your company. And here's about me, and I like you so much as a CEO, and this is why I bought the shares. I think the company's quite undervalued." She said, "Have you ever heard of this guy?" And it was signed Warren E. Buffett. I said, "No, I never heard of him." We both read 3 newspapers a day. And she hadn't heard of him, I hadn't heard of him. I'm pretty confident his name had never been in the Washington Post in business. He told me later it had been in the Post when he was on the Wilson High School golf team in 1946. But that letter could have come from anybody. It could have come from the worst person in the United States, and it came from the best. And she had the brains, one of the best days she ever had in her life, to go meet him and Charlie. She'd been told, "Stay away from these Wall Street people. They're charming when they meet you, and then they'll try to take you over." She flew out, met him and Charlie, came back and said to me, "Don, these are the smartest people I ever met."
Was she concerned? Were you concerned at that point of the idea of a hostile takeover, though? Because again, you hear Fed fund managers buying things up.
She was. But you know, she wasn't concerned about a hostile takeover. She was concerned about a hostile investor, and she found she had a wise, very friendly investor, wise enough to. Warren went on the board at the same meeting I did in September 1974. And stayed there till he turned 80. I think we were the last public board that he went off of before the Kraft Heinz board, obviously, which was a different matter. But he stayed on our board after Coca-Cola, but then got off when he turned 80.
So a long, long history that you've had with him.
Yeah, no, and
and you've been coming here for decades and decades.
I don't know, about 20 years. Okay. Not much longer than you, but a bit longer. I'm not one of those people back in the National Indemnity cafeteria like Mario.
Right. You know, Don, you are somebody who has been on a lot of boards and who has kind of watched many people come up. One of them was the Facebook board, and I realize you've been off that board for 4 or 5 years now. Yeah. But you know Mark Zuckerberg very well. You knew him when he was a college student. You met him early on, and you've been a huge defender of his. He has kind of been on this apology tour of some sort where he's meeting with Washington and kind of saying, here's how we're going to do things differently from here on out. Do you think it's effective at this point? What do you think he has to do as somebody who not only knows Zuckerberg very well, but somebody who knows Washington very well, too?
Well, I think Facebook's in a tough situation. I think people will just say anything about him and believe anything about him. And the Europeans are running around from Google to Facebook to Amazon, just fining companies any amount they want.
Billions,
not
usually.
Because they're breaking laws, but because they're American. Yeah. And in Washington, you know, it's easy right now to say a lot of things about Facebook. Facebook is a corporation. It's run by Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg. They're trying to fix a bunch of things that were wrong and a bunch of things that malevolent actors saw to it went wrong. And we're going to see. But I would... You're right. I met Mark when he was 20 by a wild series of accidents. And I would give this guy a chance to fix what's right. I think he is a person of integrity. I think Sheryl's a person of integrity. They have a lot to work on as to their reputation. They've been working in the software. That is not the area of my expertise. I think their character is, in each case, really good. But they're in a tough spot, and they both know it.
It doesn't surprise me to see the European Union throwing fines at these big tech companies. It does surprise me to hear politicians on both sides of the aisle in Washington saying they want to start breaking up some of these big companies or heavily regulate them. Have you been caught by surprise by this?
They are saying that, and I think even regulating them to the extent that everybody's now talking about, I think it'd be very bad for the country. I think that it's very likely to happen. I think the best thing that Google and Facebook have going for them is that not much actually gets done in Washington. But those companies have competitors. Those competitors are Chinese. Mm-hmm. And if Facebook and Google are hobbled by regulations, the rest of the world leadership in tech is going to be handed to Chinese companies, and I don't think that'll be very good for your privacy.
I want to talk to you about DACA and the Dreamers, which is an area that's near and dear to your heart. You have a scholarship fund that has put a lot of these kids through college, and I think some are graduating now. What's the impact on the business community that you see if there's not something done about this program?
The impact on the business community of educating these young people would be wonderful. Our little scholarship fund has 3,400 students in college. There's a whole lot more who have scholarships from the individual colleges in the United States, thousands, I think. They're coming out. They want to be teachers, nurses, business people, doctors, lawyers, the usual. Tim Cook said last year Apple at that time had 250 people with DACA working in that company. Microsoft had 150. I met somebody at Deloitte who said they had 40. And if DACA isn't codified by Congress, there's a pretty good chance that through court actions, it's going to go away. And those people all will be in some danger of losing their jobs. At the moment, they're under psychological pressure that it is totally unfair. It is cruel. It is wrong. And for these young people who have never committed a crime, or they wouldn't have DACA, or if they commit a crime, they lose DACA, who've been in school here, many of them since they were babies, we are being unintentionally very, very cruel to them. And I pray we fix this in time.